Yeah,
Great.
because, right.
Yes, thank you
When you
very
do
much.
that
Susan.
right, correctly, everybody gets a notification.
Right.
That's why I was pretty sure it wasn't happening.
Okay, great. Thank you, Susan.
Yep.
You're a star here. Okay, so
Hey, Susan.
I
Yay, good
am
for
the
me.
Luddite of the Century, Claire Johnson, president of MWA NorCal. Welcome to our presentation. This presentation is being recorded thanks to Susan Bickford and will be available on our YouTube channel. We ask that you turn off your video and audio so that we can focus on our speaker without any distractions. And if you want to drop in chat, it's at the bottom of the page to ask questions. I don't see chat on mine, but I've seen chat before. I hope you guys
Probably
have
under
chat.
the more button. Once again,
Once
if you don't
again.
see it, it'll be under the
Yeah,
three
okay,
dots.
so yeah, or Alt H.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to welcome Michal Strutin to this presentation today, and it's on how to research a mystery novel with tips for faster and more targeted research. Michal has worked as an editor. This is such an impressive resume. As an editor and writer at Outside, Rolling Stone, other national magazines, newspapers, radio. Her articles have appeared in the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, Outside, and numerous other publications. Judging Noah, A Fight for Women's Rights in the Turmoil of the Exodus was her debut novel. Michal's 8 nonfiction books include award-winning Places of Grace, The Natural Landscapes of the American Midwest, award-winning History of Hikes of the Smokies, and 2 volumes of Smithsonian Guides to Natural America. She is a member of the Authors Guild, Mystery Writers of America, Sisters in Crime, and the Historical Novel Society. In addition, she has served as a sciences and environmental research librarian at Santa Clara University and a medical librarian at East Tennessee State University. Take it away, Michal.
Okay, so those last comments were why I am here. I mean, I am writing a mystery novel, but I sure know a lot about research because I'm trained. But research can be definitely a rabbit hole experience. One that I actually enjoy, but sometimes you just don't have time to enjoy that rabbit hole. Sometimes you just want fast, and you want accurate. You know, as a writer, you don't want to be called out for having inadequate or shoddy information. So what I'm going to start with basic skills, and hopefully you'll get some Google search skills that you don't know that might help. And then I'll move on to more general information that will help general aspects of your writing. And finally, we'll get into very specific mystery related sources. Once you find a good site, you sometimes have to look around for search, browse, and filter features to find the specific information that you want, but hopefully I'll help get you to those sites. Okay, there'll be a Q&A at the end, but if you have any comments, please put them in the chat. Okay, slide 2. Wait a second. Uh-oh. Oh, wait, here it is. There we go. Okay, so these are my ABCs for searching. A is for authority, B is for bias, and C is for currency. As far as authority goes, I always look for the About tab. I remember one time I was writing something for the national parks. I worked with them a lot on the Northern Plains tribes, and I was looking up Lakota. So the first thing that comes up had a .edu, which says to me, oh, okay, education. So I clicked into that and it sounded pretty good, but the more I looked, I found that it was a 4th grade class. No, so authority, make sure you've got some good about information. Bias. So does the source have a particular viewpoint? This was a very scary thing that I learned. They've taken it down long ago, but if, let's say a decade ago, if you did a search for Martin Luther King Jr., the third result on your Google search would start out looking pretty good. A little bit of bio, a little bit of, history. But the more you dug into all of what happened, the further you went in, you realize it was a Daily Stormer website, Daily Stormer, white nationalism. So yeah, check for bias. And for me, and probably for all of us these days, currency. Things change so much. So you have IT, laws, societal views, all changing. For instance, own voice was a hashtag a couple of years ago. Within a year, it was gone. So, you just have to make sure that the date looks good and anything else that has to do with currency. Okay, let's see. Okay, here's some simple things. You might know them. Use quote marks to retrieve exact matches. So let's say I was looking for something about Michael Connolly. Well, Michael is a very common name. Connolly is a very common name. Your first bunch of results would probably be Michael Connolly, the author. But then it may break up into things with Michael and things with Connolly. If you put quotes around it, you will only get Michael Connolly. Minus sign. If you don't want to have a word in there, you put a minus sign in front of it. So I was trying to remember the name of a musician. I knew there was a Taylor in the name. But when I put in Taylor and musician, what did I get? Like pages and pages of Taylor Swift. So I put a minus in front of the Swift and I got James Taylor. And the thing that I use the most is site specific. So if you put in, and I'll show you on the Google Advanced Search page, if you put in the word, your search terms, and then put in the word site, S-I-T-E, colon, dot, and then you have a choice of org or gov or edu. And so you'll get rid of all the commercial sites, all the .coms and .nets. And let's say you're looking for government information on firearms, I don't know. If you put in firearms site, colon, .gov, everything you get will be from some government site or another. Okay, so now if you want to know how to get there without having memorized it all, you just type Google Advanced Search in the search bar. And so here's an example. I put in body farm with an asterisk. The asterisk is called a wildcard, and it will give you the word body and the word farm, but any extensions after farm, such as farms, farmer, farming. Of course, you really just want body farm, but that's what wildcards do. And then if you see where the bottom red arrow is, there's the site or the domain. And I put in .gov, and all my results are bodyfarm.gov. So, and then let's see. Oh, also, you in the search results, in the advanced search, you have a choice for country. However, it doesn't work very well. So if you're looking for sites from a specific country, I would do a search for country domain, and you'll find it. Okay, so how do things work? My son lives in Encinitas, and I remember visiting once after he'd done a lot of work on his house. He put in a dishwasher by himself. He built a patio by himself. He did some wiring by himself. And I said, "Oh, Ami, how did you learn how to do all this stuff?" And he looked at me with that, condescending kid look. And he's not a kid. Mom, YouTube. and thank you, Ami, because I use YouTube in the book that I'm now querying. I needed to know exactly how a Gutenberg press worked. And lo and behold, I did search on YouTube, and the searches, the search cues in YouTube allow you to do filters. So you can also look for searches that are over 40 minutes, under 20 minutes, that sort of thing. And okay, so whenever I'm talking, watching a police procedural, they're always talking about Glocks. And I know a Glock is a pistol, and I know it's very popular, but I know nothing about it. So if I were writing about a Glock, I'm writing historical, so I'm not. But if I were, there's a whole lot of YouTube videos on what they are, how they work, et cetera, et cetera. And in this slide, you also see crime scene definition, investigations, and examples, a video lesson. So, remember, YouTube is a good way to see what things look like, how they work, that sort of thing. Wait a second. I don't know why this keeps disappearing, but it does. There. Okay. Libraries, digital collections, and maps. I don't know if any of you have used WorldCat. WorldCat stands for World Catalog. And if you go to that site, you and do a search, and they give you different ways of searching. You can search for books, you can search for videos, audiobooks, et cetera, worldwide. And the cool thing is that once you do your search, they will return, WorldCat returns a whole list of what you searched for in the order of where it is near you. So let's say, and I'll show you this later, I was looking for a particular book on the practical applications. I can't quite remember the name of it, but Practical Homicide Investigations. And this is a very, very respected and I guess used by professional book, and it showed up in Stanford. So perhaps I could go to Stanford to look at this book because it's very expensive. Digital collections, Library of Congress, one of the best. The link takes you to their photo collections, which start from the dawn of photography. So there's photos from the Civil War, all the way up until the 1990s. So, if you're looking for, I don't know, anything political or the way people dress or what cars look like. You can find it in these digital collections. New York Public Library is another good one, as is the British Library. So you can see to the left map of Oxford. And then you can see, and if you want to see, if you go to the British Library, you can see what all the buildings look like. Lots to look at. Academic libraries. Well, every academic library has its own procedures and requirements and rules. I worked at Santa Clara University Library, and it changed while I was there, and they do. So if you want to go to an academic library and use what they've got, check beforehand, because some let you in, some do not. For instance, at Santa Clara, you could, if you had a San Jose public library card, you could come in and check out a book, obviously not a reference book, but if you didn't, you could come in, and of all the many computers in the library used by students, there were only 4 set aside for people who came in from elsewhere, and they were at a stand-up area, so they didn't want you to get too comfortable. And they had time limits. So if you find something in WorldCat, for instance, at an academic library, call before you go, or check their website to see what the rules are. And local libraries, books, databases, digital newspapers. Digital newspapers are a really great source for information. And they're from long ago until right now. And one of the best ways of using them is the ads, because the ads, show you how people lived, clothing, what they used, what they were interested in, all sorts of things. And the data, pretty much every library has some kind of newspaper database. Library consortia, that's a system within the larger system of libraries. So for instance, California has its own consortium in conjunction with Nevada, and it's called Link Plus. And instead of doing an interlibrary loan that could take a really long time from somewhere else, if Link Plus has it within the state system, they'll get it to you really quickly. And if you're in a state and want to know if it has a consortium, just go to Wikipedia and look for library consortia. Daily Life In. This is a series by Greenwood Press, and it's really probably for writers of historical mysteries, although I noticed that they had the latest book was Daily Life in the United States, 1960 to 1990. So if you're writing in that period, these books are just great. They tell you how people ate, they tell you what they wore, they tell you what the politics were, they tell you just everything about daily life, schools, fun activities, whatever. And I think there's about 15 books in the series. So that's really useful. And Google Maps, let's say you've got somebody is tracking someone. A good guy is tracking a bad guy, and you want to know how exactly they're going, if they're in a city or really almost anywhere in the US for sure. Use Google Maps. I used it in the book that I'm querying. I was in Venice a lot, and oh, without Google Maps, I would be screwed. So that's a very, very useful tool. And travel guides. Okay, so here's the WorldCat results that I was talking about. And this is hard to read. I'm going to have to look down here. Practical aspects of criminal and forensic investigations. This is a series with 42 books. It's got homicide investigation, it's got forensic techniques. Actually, forensic techniques is homicide investigation tactics, procedures, and forensic techniques is in its 5th edition, 2015. So that tells me this is a well-used book, and they're constantly updating it, and it's described as the definitive resource for homicide investigators. So, and there's a number of books in this series. Let's see, there's tire imprints, gunshot wounds, bomb scene investigations, correctional facilities, all sorts of things in this 42 book series. Hopefully, if you're interested in that sort of stuff, you will be able to find it. Okay. All right, still images. Google Images, Wikimedia Commons, and Wikimedia Commons tells you whether they hold a copyright or not. Getty, Flickr, Pinterest, they're useful for things like, you want to know what I don't know what 57 Chevy looks like, if that's what that is, or no, it's a Bel Air or something. Or if you want to see what the arches at Hanover's New Town Hall look like, where a detective or a murderer could hide behind one of those archways. It helps you visualize a scene and maybe write about it better. Okay, well, Sisters in Crime NorCal has a full page on resources for writers, all kinds of things. It includes NorCal writers. There's a Lee Child, Laura King book on how to write a mystery. There's and it was put together by Peggy Lucky, and her book is on there, Writing Mysteries. 2 of Ellen Kirschman's books, I Love a Cop and What Families Need to Know, and Counseling Cops. And Dr. JP's Pick Your Poison. So these are all how-to books for mystery writers. Useful resource. Some more are mystery writing reference from Gotham Writers, which is somewhat similar to SinC NorCal's list, maybe not as extensive. Practical aspects of criminal and forensic investigations. This is the book I was just talking about in this. Here's the 5th edition, a picture of the 5th edition. The How Done It series. Okay, so this is listed. How Done It has, I can't remember how many books, maybe about 24 in the series. And you can find them via the Goodreads link or an Amazon, and this Forensics for Fiction, Blood Spatter. And it has all kinds of things. Let's see, there's CSI, forensic medicine, weapons, deception, and more. The one caveat, though, is that a number of these books go back to the 1990s and 2000s. So, you've got that currency situation going. But there's a new book in the series that I think only goes back, goes to 2020. So there are those. And then Jane Cleland's free monthly webinars. They're great. They got me through COVID. I think they got her through COVID. It's a wonderful kind of clan of mystery writers, and each webinar is different. For instance, she's done them on setting, on subplots, on emotion in mysteries. Everyone is different. So, and they're free. There's Murder and Mayhem. A doctor answers medical and forensic questions from mystery writers book. And Ask an Expert. Really, I was a editor of National Parks Magazine, so I had to acquire lots of articles and lots of photographs, and some by really kind of famous writers and photographers. And when I first became that editor, I was like, whoa, what if they say no? Well, they might, but if you don't ask, you won't get the answer. So at one point I was, I think I'm going to write national park mysteries. And I started a book. I stopped because I found out there was somebody else doing that already and had a number of books. So that didn't make too much sense. But I asked the park ranger, gee, what would happen if, somebody was put in a hot pool, not the big geyser, but some other place. What would happen to the body? Like, especially the eyes. And he laughed and he said, oh, the eyes, they'd be like hard-boiled eggs. So, which I kind of loved that idea. But if you don't ask, you won't find out. And most people are really, really very welcoming and will answer your questions. Oh, and by the way, if you need experts in, there's academia.edu. It's a collection of academics whose works you can download, and you can even ask them questions. So I'm not sure how useful that is for mystery writers, but sometimes it might be. Okay, on the web, Medline Plus and is CDC to a lesser extent. Medline Plus is my go-to consumer medical site. It's got anything you want. You put in a search term, you will get things from PubMed, very, very serious academic articles, to overviews and what to do. And there's a medical dictionary. So Medline Plus is a really great place to go for anything medical. CDC, you can browse their A to Z list or do a search. Let's see. Med Crimes podcast. Let me see what I have on Med Crimes. Okay. Oh, this is two nurses dive into all sorts of sinister medical true crimes. And autopsy technique. Autopsy technique is pretty straightforward. It's not that complicated. It's basically a PDF that shows you the progression of an autopsy, what's cut open, how it's cut open, I've been to a few autopsies. It's fascinating. And the National Institute of Justice's crime scene examination, it has various components, courts and equipment, cold cases. It's full of information. Well, crime stats, US crime stats, CDC stats, crime stats are stats. Pick your poison podcast. Dr. JP, you know who you are. I have spent minutes at a time looking at that lovely green toxic gas bubbling up in the right-hand corner of that podcast. But there's all kinds of really interesting podcasts in there. One on, I'm a plant person, just in general, and you know, where animals, including us, have jaws and claws, plants have chemicals, poisons. So I like that, and she has one on loco. I assume that's going to be loco weed, and then a poisoner's poison. There's a number of really interesting sounding podcasts. In Interpol, if you go to Interpol and then go to their crimes site, you can find all kinds of things out on drug trafficking and terrorism and crimes against children. And finally, the Blue Book of Gun Values. The Blue Book of Gun Values online has about 35,000 weapons, all very different and specific. And so you can look up whatever you want and not only see what it looks like, but it gives you a link to the specs. So you can be totally accurate on your weapon. Okay, bone whispering. Bone whispering. I found this. It says that it's a video, and it says at the top grades 6 through 8, and I go, oh no, this is not for me. But I started watching, and it's less than half an hour. And if you want to see how a forensic anthropologist goes about deciding what kind of a body she or he is looking at, it's really very useful. She looks at pelvises, she looks at teeth, she can tell you how old somebody is, what sex they are. It's interesting. Unearthing bones for 20 years at the body farm. Also a video, pretty short one, and it doesn't really show you what they find as much as how they find it. So, you know, how they dig layer by layer, how they mark, just to make sure that, you know, they don't dig a bullet down into a spot where they can't find it, or it's in the wrong spot. And if these bones could speak is somewhat the same information, but in text form. Forensic entomology. Bugs, great. Bugs are great. The use of insects in investigations. This is from the National Library of Medicine, and it tells you a little bit about the history of using insect in investigation. It goes back to China long ago. And then it starts by telling you what you will find at what time. And then it does a breakdown day by day. So here we have on the screen here, blowfly. And blowflies are some of the first insects to show up. And it goes day by day what insects are going to show up. Pretty fascinating. And insects at the scene of the crime is somewhat similar, but less in depth. Okay, this is so fun. KillerCon, the Writers Police Academy. So this is actually a convention that's going to take place in June, this June, I think June 6th through 9th or something like that. It takes place in Wisconsin. And all the instructors are Department of Justice certified. So this is hands-on stuff for writers in particular, who want to learn how to really describe what they're writing about. So it's costs, well, I can't remember how much it costs, but you can find out at this particular site. Doing police procedurals. This is, I believe it's a blog, if I can, let's see. Yeah, it is. It's a particular blog. It's his August 7th blog, and he mentions his books. He was, I think, a consultant for Criminal Minds, and he mentions other books and other podcasts, including the one right below it, The Graveyard Shift, which is a blog by Lee Laughlin, which includes procedures, investigation, forensics, and writing craft. Officer.com. Oh, this is a, this is a big scary pile of stuff. Basically, it's an online store for cops, and it's divided into categories, and you can see everything that they possibly could want to buy. So you can make sure that any equipment or clothing or et cetera, that you're writing about is spot on correct. And if you, any of the categories you go into, if you look on the right-hand side, it has the whole list of categories and what you can buy in each. I'd hate to have to shop in it though. It's a little overwhelming. And Writer's Digest, Writer's Digest has 2 different blogs on tips for writing police procedurals. And oh, I've lost my arrow. Here it is. Oh, and how can we not talk about artificial intelligence? My grandson, I was over at my daughter's house, and he asked me if I had used, he knows I'm a writer, and he asked me if I used ChatGPT. And I went, no. And he grabs my phone and loads it up for me. And I actually did it to kind of tighten up my query, you know, the worst thing that you ever have to write. And what came back was a little on the wooden side, but it did squeeze my words down to an appropriate length. And from there, I massaged it and had some help from NorCal members. You know who you are. So the first link in this is AI in the criminal justice system. This is an AI program to teach coding AI coding to high school students. And you don't learn how to code at this site, but it tells you about how AI is used in the justice system for crime prevention, evidence, sentencing, things like that. And the next one, artificial intelligence and thrillers. Adam, he's a legal expert. And I threw in there, I'm a medical librarian too. So, if it was published in Lancet, it's got to be, very good. Although they've had some strange things in there. And he talks about artificial intelligence and thrillers. And artificial intelligence and the crime novel, Joe Sousa from the Main Crime Writers, 2021. This is really interesting because he talks about the idea of identity. So artificial intelligence as identity. And you can go anywhere from evil to good in this idea of artificial intelligence. And he discusses that for a bit. And I found that if you are looking for something that in fiction that explores this subject, these two books, The Perfect Wife by J.P. Delaney is mystery, and a lot of people recommend that. And Clara and the Sun by Ishiguro, he's I believe a Nobel laureate in literature, so you can be sure that that's pretty much going to be a good read. And okay, so this is, at the end of 4th of July that, you've had fireworks here, fireworks there, but at the end of it, there's explosions everywhere. Bang, 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 bang. Well, Lawson's in reference to murder is sort of like that. She has hundreds of links to all sorts of things that are crime and mystery related. As you can see on this table of contents page, she's got them all alphabetized. And she's got lists on, let's see, cyber crimes, police procedurals, weapons, forensics, all up at the top, and you can look at it that way too. Now, I checked it out, and most of the links work. There's a few that I only bumped into a couple that were dead, but this is a monstrous undertaking. That's a terrific job. Guess what her mom's profession was? Librarian. So she used that as a jumping off point for all this wonderful, all these wonderful links. Okay, I think I can stop sharing now and questions. So let's see. Let me. There.
I have a question, Michal. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I have a question about copyright and images.
Is it... I can tell you what the answer is.
Okay, all right.
It's a librarian answer. So
right.
It's fair use. Is that what you're asking about?
Well, I know that like you had Getty up on the image as a link, and Getty seems to be very, very proprietary about their images, and they want you to pay for them. And please correct me if I'm wrong, that as I understand that if an image was taken 75 years ago, then it's beyond that, say 1920, it's free game. You can't copyright an image after that point. Is that true? I mean,
Well, I know that that's for written material. I don't know what it is for pictorial material, but 75 years, yeah, probably so. And here, fair use is basically if you use an image once and you do not make any money off of it, you should be able to use it. But when I put up an image anywhere, I always see if it's copyright free, and if not, I will ask the author. You know, if you're using it for a cover, probably if it's if it's not out of copyright, you have to pay.
Right.
So that's the answer.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Well,
That it?
I thought I knew a lot about researching and search and Google, but I learned a lot of stuff.
Yay. Well, and thank you, Susan, for getting this whole slideshow going at the beginning. Otherwise, you wouldn't have learned it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I'll send you my bill.
Really, we should be paying her. This is a lot of really good information. I wanted to know if we can get a copy of them.
Yeah. Well,
Claire sent out a
okay.
copy of the, if you pre-registered, maybe you registered late. I got a
I-
copy in email.
Oh, well, maybe I did and I didn't notice.
You should have, Anna, because I sent it out I sent it to sisters and asked them to distribute it. And I also sent it to all the members of MWA.
Okay.
So you should have gotten, and if you haven't, just shoot me an email.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, no, because that's great, but I didn't want to sit and scribble notes the whole time and then miss what you were saying. So I just listened. And wow, now I want to go research. Forget writing. Let's just do research.
No, it's very scary to go down that rabbit hole. Wait, so if you really want a rabbit hole that you hardly can climb out of at all, it's foodtimeline.org.
Oh, okay. I love food.
Yeah, who doesn't love food? And this tells you the history of just about anything you want to eat.
Oh, good.
oh, I don't
Yes.
know. That can be pretty scary, actually. I don't know.
Well, for instance, marshmallows actually began as marshmallows, those plants that you find in marshes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And they were
Swamps.
yeah, you made tea out of it, and it helped you in some herbal way. And somehow it segued. They added sugar, they dropped out the green leaves, and what you have are puffy white things that are very sweet.
Well, it's like if you ever go to those like anything that discusses food, say, the history, what the Tudors were eating, or even what Jane Austen's mother was putting on the table. Oh my God, all these people died at 50 of heart attacks. I mean, it was, because no preservatives, right? So you have salted meats, you have, it was literally just cholesterol city all the time. Bread and meat. Because they
So
didn't
who
have,
thinks they're going to go to KillerCon?
Alexa Mack went to the Writers Police Academy and she said it was wonderful. And I have another friend who went and said it was fantastic. So those are two recommendations. I thought, does anybody know? I thought that I got an email from Lee Laughlin last year saying this was going to be the last year. But it seems, does anybody know why it's
he
continuing?
went through he and his wife, his stepdaughter died a terrible prolonged death from successive cancers and other problems, and they had moved and so anyway, yes, so something, they basically did and I don't have any inside details really, except that it looks like things are back on track. I think he just had to step away for a while.
Because I've heard very good things about it. So.
Yeah. So he's back, but
Good.
he did. It has, I think also COVID, all this was happening where all this terrible, terrible stuff happened just,
Sorry, I said okay. What do I need? What do you need?
just before
I just
COVID
had a
hit.
really frustrating thing trying to get the permit people to come out. And
Oops, someone's talking.
I'm gonna go to take deliver Queen stuff, or that's something I can do.
Okay,
I know how to do.
okay.
I don't know.
I don't know either. So any more questions? I think this was really thorough, so,
Well, you will be able to peruse the whole thing. All those links are live, so
Yeah,
I
that's
I
great.
have a friend who's she's writing a history of her great grandfather. Her family is very old South, and he was crazy, absolutely nuts. But he was also trying to stop Andrew Jackson's basic death march of the Indian tribes out of Tennessee. And her grandfather was trying to act on behalf of the Indian tribes and was bulldozed anyway. So she has kind of like become a genealogy expert. And she's been helping me track my family, which my parents immigrated in the 50s. My dad was Scottish and my mother was Irish. Now forget the Irish records, because nothing happens after 1921. I mean, they just don't have records. But the Scottish records are pretty interesting and they're very complete. And I mean, there really was an interesting story. I mean, I think if people went back and looked at their history, and like why I put the link into ancestry.com, because, you know, she discovered that, you know, my father was a doctor and his father was a railroad clerk. But before that, all the previous relatives worked in a rubber factory. And so there was this big transition from very, very working class to all of a sudden, sort of middle class, and then, you know, a doctor. So it would, and she found some pictures of this factory that they worked in. This must have been comprised, something must have been like 8 city blocks. This thing was a Victorian monster. It was horrible. And yet, you know, it was probably the primary employer in Edinburgh at that time. So that is certainly why I wanted to talk about images. But it, you know, if you go back, there's a story there. I don't know if I'm going to write it, but there's definitely a story there. You know, that transition from one class to another. You know, it's just intriguing. So I think that's what you mean, Michal, about research. It's like once you start down that rabbit hole, where do you go?
well, so I not too long ago I read Back to the Garden, Lori King's book.
Mhm.
Of course, I immediately figured out it was Filoli, because where else could it be? But not only did she nail the whole you know, ambiance of that time and place and all the people, but you know, if she hadn't been there, if she didn't, you know about it in any other way, she could have learned a lot just from pictures of that time.
Yeah. Well, the San Francisco Chronicle actually has a wonderful database of photographs. Also, opensfhistory.org, amazing database of photographs. And what, you know, because my book is coming out in June, is set in 1930. So it's before the bridges, which is kind of interesting. But all these photographs of, you know, what was, you know, the traffic's still horrible. It's still horrible. And just all these cars and people and, you know, so it's fascinating. It really is interesting. Anyway,
Well, info is out there.
what?
Info is out there.
It's out there. It's definitely out there. And I really want to thank you for putting this together. It was a true labor of love, I can tell. And Susan, thank you very much for as always, solving our tech issues. Since, you know, I mean, Michal isn't, I mean, I am an admitted Luddite, so, you know, you're dealing with a total idiot here. So I really do appreciate it. Thank you. So if nobody has any other questions, enjoy your afternoon. And I hope to see a lot of you at Left Coast. Yes? Thumbs up. Thumbs up.
I are on a panel together.
What?
I think you and I are on a panel together.
We are. We're on the food panel together.
I want to read one of your books. Can you send me an EPUB?
I am actually would love to send you a real book because I have 200 of them and I can't get rid of them.
All my extras I'm going to send for the bags.
Oh, that's a good idea. That is a really
but,
good idea.
If you want to send me a book, that's fine.
I will send you 2 books.
Want one of mine? Are you going to read a book by everybody?
Yes, I will. So do send me an EPUB.
Okay.
But I will send you copies because I really want to get rid of them.
Okay. Well,
I mean, they're quite old. So anyway, I will send it to you. Yeah, we are in a panel. I saw that. Yay.
I'll email you my address.
Oh, I have it. Database. I'm all set. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Again, thank you, Michal. Thank you, Susan. Goodbye, everyone. Take care.
Bye.